The first year of my career as an underachieving Cub Scout ends with a pizza party. After the den mother drops us off, in my yard, I hear a bird call that doesn't really sound like any of the calls on my cassette of recorded bird calls. It turns out it's a distressed baby robin, and it's being stalked by our neighbor Clyde's cat. And I know the nest it probably fell from, and that its mother wouldn't take it back. So I adopt him, and I name him Lucky, because I saved him. And Lucky's initially scared of me due to my enormous size. But I feed him worms and take care of him, and he eventually starts, hopping around behind me. And, he's a good pet, but I want him to be a fully actualized adult. So I teach him to fly by, I put him on a rock and I hold out a worm, and he jumps and flies a little further each time. But a couple weeks later, my little brother, in a desperate attempt to usurp me as Lucky's friend, feeds him Rocky Road ice cream, and he chokes and dies. Lucky, not my brother, unfortunately. So I bury him in the backyard under this big hollow white plastic statue of St. Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of animals. I write a series of prayers aimed at his reanimation, which don't work, but I take comfort knowing that God knows I did my best. Unfortunately, Lucky's not an isolated case. I'm always saving, abandoned or injured animals, and then they die. So it's almost like this huge burial mound under the statue, with rocks and shells, and I'm always having these funerals, which get witnessed by the neighbors out of context, and they think they're sacrifices. But it actually works in our favor because they don't make us do a shift in the neighborhood watch. So about a month, mid-June maybe, I'm walking across a vacant lot, and I see this puddle that's full of toad tadpoles. And those are the kind that look like little black sperm. Actually, it would be big black sperm, but they're, as opposed to toad tadpoles, are less numerous, and they're big and green. Anyway, there's about 100. They're gonna die if I don't save them. The puddle's drying. So but they'll die if I save them. But hope springs eternal. So I scoop up 80 in a jar, and I take them home. So the response at dinner to my rescue is discouraging. My dad's like, I'm gonna have to buy another statue. And my sister, who's into this up-and-coming band called the Talking Heads, starts calling me Psycho Killer. So the next day, 2 of them die, and the day after, 1 dies, and the day after, none die, but one of them has a growth. It looks like another head, although it's hard to tell because that's what they are. And one dies the day after, and somewhere between the 18th and 23rd deaths, I participate in a series of violent internal dialogues which reshape my views on religion and conclude with the observation that it's up to me to save the tadpoles. So the next day, I get up early, I call Shasta's Exotic Pet Store, identifying myself as an amphibian dealer, and they hang up on me. So even though I'm a weak bike rider / map reader, I make a desperate, unauthorized 4-mile bike ride to Shasta's. And I just hang out at the store, and finally someone's like, can I help you? And I'm like, oh, I'm an amphibians dealer. And he's like, why are you reading a hamster book? And I just totally crack, and I start crying, and I tell him about the cat. And he's like, calm down. And he's like, how can you change the water? And I say, every day I put in new water. And he goes, that's the problem. The water from the faucet has chlorine. You've got to put it in a big bowl and let it sit so the chlorine can evaporate, because it's poison to amphibians. So that night, I do just that. And the next day, 1 dies, and but I notice they're starting to get back legs. And then I go a couple days with none of them dying, and one of them starts to get the buds of a front leg. And by now even my sister notices, and she stops stops calling me a psycho killer and starts asking me what's new. A quick nature note, the odds of going from tadpole to juvenile toad are less than 1%. Out of the 86 tadpoles I took from that puddle, I returned 51 to the marshy area surrounding Beck Lake. I don't know. Thanks. I doubt that God or St. Francis or Gaia, the Earth Mother, will look out for them. But that's okay. They've got me. Thank you.